Welcome back to Unquiet You. Today we're going to talk about a topic that I think a lot of women go through, and it's a topic that I like to say it's when you kind of wake up and you feel like you're no longer you. You feel like everything isn't you. And I don't think it's a moment that happens overnight. I don't think it's something that's really loud or that you have to have a massive change. I always say I think this is one of those moments that happen really quiet in our life. We don't have breakdowns. I don't think it's a crisis. I kind of think it's just a pause. I think sometimes we get to a place where you're kind of standing there and you're looking in your closet, or maybe it's you're driving somewhere that you go every day. It's like a normal routine, right? Like it's something you've done 1,000 times, or you go to your favorite coffee shop and you're ordering the same thing you've always ordered. And then all of a sudden, none of it feels like you anymore. The clothes that you loved maybe a few months ago, or maybe even last week, all of a sudden they don't feel like you. You don't feel good in them. The routines that you have always had, they just feel very hollow. They feel like there's no purpose to them. Maybe the things that you order at stores, they don't have the same taste to you anymore, and they just don't feel like you anymore. The wants that you've carried for a really long time don't land when you talk about them. The things that you used to want, they just don't feel like the things that you want anymore. And I think that the unsettling part of this is that things weren't wrong. There's nothing wrong with your clothes or the things that you used to do. I think that we can build a life that really works. And I think all of this fit into that life, right? I think that you can stay very steady. I think that you are safe in that world. I think that's when we start to live that world every day, it becomes very safe. And so now all of a sudden you have this restlessness about you. This something is way, way off. And I think that a lot of women, when this happens, they want to ask themselves, like, what's wrong with me? What has happened? And they'll say things like, I don't even know what I like anymore. None of my clothes look good on me anymore. I must have gained weight, or maybe I am not supposed to dress like this anymore. Or they'll say, I don't even know what I want, right? I think that that's always a big tell that we're kind of in a middle of something changing. Is you feel very disconnected to yourself. You feel like the version of you that you knew doesn't make sense to you anymore. There's things that you liked that you don't understand why you don't like them anymore. And I think that a lot of questions, then our brains want to start wrapping around questions like, well, what am I supposed to dress like? How am I supposed to dress? Can I do things differently? Do I have to like the same things I've always liked? Or a lot of people in our lives will say, well, you've always liked this. And so when we make comments like, well, I don't like that anymore, it's very odd, right? It's very like changing. It's because they know this version of you, and that you've also only known this version of you. And now all of a sudden things are not appealing to you anymore. And I think this is also where a lot of women will ask questions like, is it too late for me to change what I like? Is it too late for me to want to do something different? And we ask the question, am I allowed to become someone new when the old version I built was everything that I said that I wanted? And I think that is a key thing, is that we've built a life that we wanted. We've done all the things that we said that we wanted. And then when it starts to become not enough, or it doesn't have the same feelings, we question what's wrong with us. Why are we not able to accept it? And I want you to understand that I think it feels very confusing in the beginning. I don't think it's confusion. I really think it's an awakening. I think that all the things that you've done, all the ways that you've showed up, the ways that you've dressed, the goals that you chased, the life that you built were actually part of who you were. And I think it shaped who you needed to become in order to achieve those things. And it makes you feel like you were chosen. They were the things that made you feel accepted, dependable, strong, all the things that you thought you wanted. And maybe you actually did want them in that chapter. I think they also become very, very comfortable. And I think we become very predictable as people. And for ourselves, we become predictable. But for those who love us, we also become predictable. And so losing that feels very confusing to us. And so I want people to understand that comfort is not the same as alignment. I think it's very easy for us to become comfortable, right? Because we'll say things like, I always wanted this kind of lifestyle. I wanted to be able to do this, or I've always really enjoyed this. And so it's very comfortable to us. And so when things start to feel uncomfortable, we internalize that as something wrong with us versus looking at it as like, maybe it's just not aligned with who I want to become, right? And I think an alignment has a way of calling us forward because we no longer have to survive the way that we were. And so I think we can build what we want, what we thought we wanted in that chapter. And then all of a sudden we're surviving that. We're like living in it. We're comfortable. And so an alignment is something that's like inwardly calling you for something bigger, something different. We don't want to lose our comfort because alignment can be very uncomfortable. And so I think this has happened to me. I think it happens to a lot of women. We ask ourselves questions like, especially in midlife, where you'll see women start getting tattoos. You'll see women dress edgier, or maybe they start to dress softer, and maybe they are dressing more intentional. I think that women start to crave, depth and stillness versus loud and, chaos, right? I think that we want to start looking for space. We need our space. We want truth. We want depth. We want more of the internal stuff that lights us up internally, not outwardly for other people. And I think as those feelings start to come, panic will kick in, and we'll ask ourselves questions like, what am I doing? Why am I blowing up the life that I said I wanted to create? And why am I creating chaos in my life? And I think those are all very normal questions, but I think it's actually not that you're creating chaos. I think it's just you're reframing your life. I think that we're not burning anything down. We're not forgetting the life we created. We're not discounting the life we created. We're just shedding versions of ourselves that no longer feel honest to us, no longer feel aligned with who we are today. And I think that when our self-worth can start to shift, we can start to shift our desires. And that becomes very uncomfortable in the beginning. But when we stop performing for approval and you start listening inward, we start realizing that our desires are actually pretty loud and they're worth following through on. When we no longer need to feel validated in order to feel safe, our nervous system will start reaching for new things. And it can feel very disoriented, very chaotic, very confusing. You're basing it off the life that you knew, the person that you were. And so then all of a sudden the guilt will creep up, and we worry about the people that love us, right? We worry about our partners. We worry about our children. We worry about all the things around us of the people that knew that version of us, because then we want to question ourselves that, are we becoming too much? Are we changing so much that we're a totally different person and it's not fair to them? And so when we ask ourselves, and I think most women do this in some way, shape, or form, we ask ourselves, how are our changes inwardly, like how are the desires we truly want going to impact the ones that we love? And I think that one of the things that's not talked about a lot or enough, I believe, is that growth always creates movement in any way, shape, or form. So any area of our life that we're growing in, there's going to be movement around it. And it doesn't mean that it's bad or reckless or immature or any of the things. I think it makes it real. It means that changes are happening. And that's really the only way to grow, is to take some movement. And when we make movement, everyone tied to us also has movement. And I also think that changing doesn't mean that we're rejecting anything from the past. It means that we're responding to the present, to the person we are right now. And I think that as women, we want to add guilt to that. And that's where the guilt has to be let go. Because I say all the time, through my divorce, I changed the person that I was and my desires and my wants and the things that I needed to feel fulfilled. It didn't mean that I rejected anything from the past, because I loved that person. Like, I think I had to become her in order to love that version of my life, that chapter of my life. And I think it's also okay to say that my desires have shifted. And I think that when we have an awakening, it's not chaos. It's just us catching up. It's us saying like, oh, internally, there's something different. There's something more for us. One of the ways that we can see this, I think this happens a lot for moms. I think it happens to women in general. But I think that sometimes as our kids start growing, maybe they're not needing us as much, we start to have what some people will call an identity crisis or a shift. I don't think it's an identity crisis at all. I literally think it's just us listening internally and realizing that there are things that we have desires for in this chapter that maybe we didn't last chapter. And that's okay, but it's up to us to listen to it and to start aligning with who we're becoming. I think that one of the ways that you can lean into this without jumping both feet in is that get very curious. Get curious as to why certain things are coming up. Like what is piquing your interest that hasn't piqued your interest before? And I think that being curious and wondering if you did something new, what could happen for you? How can this change your life? Like doing all of that is not making you have a decision right now. Like we don't have to decide that just because we think tattoos are cool that we have to go to a tattoo parlor tomorrow, right? But we might get curious as to why we do love tattoos all of a sudden, or maybe why we like to dress a certain way all of a sudden, or maybe it's that we just enjoy new music or we enjoy doing something different. Maybe we like to go line dancing all of a sudden, or maybe that's something from the past that we forgot about, and now we want to get back to it. I think that there's ways to just get really curious and ask yourself, like, why do I want to do this? What could it look like if I just tried it? I think also we get to try things on without committing to them. You can try a new outfit, dress a little bit differently. And if you don't like it, it's okay. We can go back or we can shift to something else. But I think our truth really lives in us answering the calling of letting ourselves be curious, letting ourselves understand that nothing has gone wrong just because we like something new and we want different desires. I also don't think it means that anything has to change in our family dynamic or that anything has gone wrong. Like they're not wrong. Nothing they're doing is wrong. It's just us as we're growing and learning. And I think that this is also part of having a partner, is learning that we're all going to go through these changes at different times. And it's appreciating that person and letting them grow and growing with them versus constantly putting them down for changing or wanting to only know that old version of them because the new version is a little uncomfortable and maybe they're demanding a little bit more, or maybe their desires are a little different than ours. And that's okay too. I just think that we have to really, really look at our own desires and respond to them with some clarity, not avoidance, not resistance. I think this happens to a lot of women when we try to resist it. We become attached to that old version of us. And so we force things that we used to do. We try so hard to stay in this box, but there's a part of us that's screaming to get out, and you're constantly resisting and battling that until you start listening and understand that this doesn't mean anything about the version that you were, and it's giving yourself permission to become the version that you want to be and go after all of the desires, because at the end of the day, that's what we all want, right? Like we all want to live these aligned lives that are full of desires and that make us feel whole inside. And so I want you as women to really lean into that and understand it's going to come through phases, right? Like what you liked at 20, you don't like at 40, or maybe you do again, but you didn't like it at 30, or there's things at 46 that I like now that I would have never liked 5 years ago, or things that I really enjoy, I would have never enjoyed at 25, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that the 25-year-old version of me was wrong. It means that she had different desires and she was aligned a little bit differently. And the version of me at 46 is going to be probably a little different than the version of me at 60, right? And so I want to lean into that, and I get really curious. There are some things I'm really curious about. When I turned 40, I got really curious about like trying something a little scary. And so my daughter was also the same way. And so she bought me skydiving, and we danced around it. Like, we didn't book it for months. That was in January. It was for my 40th birthday. And we just danced around it because I was like, well, I had curiosity around it, but like, that's so not me as a person. I've always played it safe. And in 10 years before, I would have said how selfish of someone to go skydiving when they have children or whatever it was. And then all of a sudden it was like that curiosity was so deep inside of me that I'm like, I can live on the edge. Like, to me, that was living on the edge a little bit. And so we did it. We went skydiving, and it was great. And it was an adrenaline rush and all of the things. And I was so proud of myself for doing it. But when my feet hit the ground, I was like, that's not me. It's not going to happen again. And I was okay with that because I leaned into that curiosity, and I wanted to see if maybe, I think some people love that thrill. And I was like, maybe that is me. Maybe there's a part of me that wants that. And then I realized it's not really me. But I was glad I leaned into it, because had I not, I would have always had the curiosity of like, what if you just tried it? What if you did something extreme like that? So I do that a lot. I do that constantly throughout life. I'm always like leaning into my curiosity, and some things I pick up on and some things I don't. I would have never thought I liked tattoos, and I actually love tattoos. And so I have a couple now, and it's not because of anything on the outside. It was just, I appreciate a tattoo, and I appreciate having meaning behind a tattoo. And my daughter and I got tattoos on her birthday, and she has my handwriting tattooed on her. And I just think that's a really cool thing that we did. And it's something that I'll always love. And I love that it's a part of me now. I got a tattoo a year ago that's pretty visible in the summertime if I have on a tank top or something. And, that was not me. A lot of people who knew me from the past would say, never saw you doing that. And I love my tattoo. I love the story it tells. I love the meaning. I love everything about it. But I wouldn't have done that had I not leaned into the curiosity and allowed myself to be aligned with a different version that I had known before. So ask that. I hope all of us can listen and lean into that and understand that it doesn't mean we have to burn our lives down. It doesn't mean everything we're doing is bad. I just think that we all deserve the space to explore and get really curious and lean into that feeling that there's going to be times in our lives where things just don't feel normal. They don't feel like what we've known, and that nothing has gone wrong. And this is actually your inner voice screaming at you to get aligned with what you truly desire. And so I hope that you have the courage to lean into that. That is something we work on in the one-on-one coaching world, is learning that our desires matter and that they are loud, and we want to listen to them, and we lean into them, and we try new things, and we decide what works and what doesn't, and we really get excited about life again. So I hope you resonated with this episode and that you are able to lean into a desire this week. And thanks for listening. Thanks for being here and for choosing to be a little louder, a little braver, and a whole lot more you. If this episode spoke to you, I'd love it if you subscribed, left a review, or shared it with someone who needs it. Until next time, keep tuning in to the fire inside. Stay unquiet.